Well, there's an interesting moment at the end of John chapter 11, right after the event where Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead. And it was that moment, more than anything else, that accelerated the reality that we just read about, that made the situation of Jesus' death become true. In the raising of Lazarus, it was where Jesus started to become more noticed. More people were following him. It was this miracle in particular that made people notice him. I mean, sure, Jesus had skirmishes with the Jewish religious leaders before that, but in their mind, he was just this preacher, miracle worker, but from some out of the way, not from Jerusalem, some small part of Israel. He's got some sort of a following around him, but not enough to actually reckon with him. But it's in the raising of Lazarus from the dead that people take notice, that there's something going on with this Jesus. And it's immediately following that act. It's immediately in recognizing the significance of what Jesus alone did on that day that leads to these Jewish religious leaders gathering around and coming to only one of two possible outcomes. They either acknowledge that Jesus is who he says he is, or they try to kill him. This is John chapter 11, starting in verse 45. It said, many of the Jews, and this is not Jews generally, but when John writes about the Jews, he's talking about Jewish religious leaders. Many of these Jewish religious leaders, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did in raising Lazarus from the dead, they believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, what are we to do? For this man performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. Certainly Jesus and these Jewish religious leaders, the chief priests and the Pharisees, they had their flare-ups before this. They had disagreements. They had times where they stepped on each other's toes. And we could almost see their exasperation in their comment. What are we to do? The little steps that we have done to stop him have done little to actually do so. And now he has raised a man from the dead. If we do not put an end to this, people will turn away from us. Everyone will believe in him. And this puts in place a plan that ultimately culminates in all those passages that we just read. In chapter 11, the question is, what will we do? In chapter 19, we hear of what they did. This is John 19, 15 through 16. And they, the Jewish religious leaders, cried out, away with him, crucify him. And Pilate said to them, shall I crucify your king? And the chief priests answered, we have no king but Caesar. And so he delivered him over to them to be crucified. They said, if we do not stop him, everyone will believe in him. And so they do what they can to stop him. Now, unfortunately, at least for them, this very action that they take to stop him leads to their prophecy being fulfilled. Everyone will believe in him because they delivered him over to be crucified. Now, we've brought this idea up over and over throughout the Gospel of John, that belief is such a key idea to the gospel. It's where we even got our title for this series that we've been in since the end of August. And the idea of it comes in John chapter 20. Now it says, now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these, so the Gospel of John is written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So all of this captures the very reason why Jesus goes to the cross, the very reason why he dies, the very reason that we say this Friday is good. That Jesus dies so that you would believe in him. That was the fear of these leaders in John chapter 11. And that was the reality that comes because they put their plans into action. Now, certainly that's not the only reason why Jesus died. And it's not even the only reason why Jesus dies as captured in John chapter 11. We see more as we continue. This is verse 49. But one of the religious leaders named Caiaphas, who was high priest at that year, said to them, you know nothing at all. Nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish." I mean, on the surface, this is just simple logic. If Jesus is a threat to our livelihoods, to the way that our nation works, to the safety that we have, to maintaining the uneasy relationship that we have with Rome, well, isn't it better that his life is lost so that we don't lose the whole nation, one for the many? But as we read on to the very next verse, we see that there's more going on than just simple logic. More, it turns out, than even Caiaphas realizes. More meaning to his words than I think he meant. Rather than Jesus dying to protect them from something worse from Rome, what we see is that Jesus dies to protect all from something worse in all, the very impact of sin in every person's life. Caiaphas is spot on when he says, "Isn't it better for one to die for the many?" He's just thinking of the wrong enemy. Jesus dies so that we don't die. He goes to the cross. He endures this mocking, this scourge from those around him, this pain that he goes through, the sorrow, knowing exactly what will come on the other side of it, knowing in advance, proclaiming from the very beginning why this is the route that he's choosing, why this is the path that he is going. Because he says it is better for one to die for the people, so that all should not perish. Jesus goes to the cross so that you do not die, so that you would have life everlasting in his name. And we see that in the meaning of Caiaphas' words. We get this in the very next verse. This is verse 51. It says, "He did not say this of his own accord, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation." All throughout the Gospel of John, John leaves little interpretive helps for us, little notes here and there to make sure that we really get the meaning of what's going on. And this is another one of those times. He reminds that Caiaphas is high priest, and his role was to speak to the people on behalf from God, to represent God to the people. And yet he did not realize, as he said these words, that he was fulfilling his job requirement. He was speaking from God to the people. He was prophesying that Jesus would die so that many would not. And this just becomes one of many fulfillments that Jesus accomplishes as he goes to the cross. One of many places that he fulfills these promises when he goes to die on Good Friday. In this situation that seems so out of control for Jesus, in this time where it seems like he is a victim, that things are happening that he does not want to be a part of, in a time that seems so unfortunate, Jesus is being cut down with still so much life that he could be living. The movement will be put to an end, surely, during this time when it's its most popular. It seems so unfortunate, so unfortunate that it would happen in this way. Jesus would be such a victim to all that's going on. What we see is that Jesus fully knows what he will do. But more than that this story is one that God himself has been telling from the very beginning. Now, all throughout the Old Testament, especially in times when Israel was going through such difficulty, God would step into history and make sure that they did not miss what was going on, much like John does here. He would speak to remind them of what's going on. You're going through hardship. You're going through sorrow. You're turning away from me. Things are really difficult. There's an enemy at the door. But remember what I've promised you. Remember what your future is. Remember what will happen. Remember that someone is coming. Someone who will be faithful when you have not been. Someone who will bring you back to God. Someone who will give you a new heart when your heart has just been bent back on itself. Someone who will reign and rule forever and ever. Someone who will make all of God's promises come true. Someone who will right every wrong. Someone who will bring justice and mercy. Someone who will take all that's broken in the world and replace it instead with everlasting peace. Someone who will suffer. Someone who will die. Someone who will be crushed. As we said, those prophecies are all throughout the Old Testament, but perhaps nowhere more clear, or at least more famous, than in the book of Isaiah. This time in Israel's history that was so dire. But God spoke through Isaiah saying, remind the people, tell them of what will happen. Let them know someone is coming who will face sorrow so you don't have to. There's a number of places that we can go to in Isaiah to see that very same thing, but one such place is Isaiah 53, 11 through 12. This is Isaiah speaking, reminding the people, out of the anguish of his soul, he shall see and be satisfied. By his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors. Yet he bore the sin of many and makes intercession for the transgressors. In the Gospel of John, Caiaphas does very much so the same thing as Isaiah here. One will die. One will give up his soul for the many, for the transgressors, to take the sins of the many. Caiaphas does a very similar prophecy all those years later. There is one key distinction between the two prophecies. Isaiah said, someone is coming. Caiaphas said, here is that someone. Here is this one who will be crushed so that we aren't, who will bear the sins of the many. And finally, the last reason we have that Jesus came to die, at least from John chapter 11, there's so many more reasons that we can give. There's entire books that just list out all the reasons why Jesus came to die. But at least from this passage, there's one more reason that we see, and that's Jesus dies to make you a child of God. John 11:52. Still commenting on what Caiaphas said, that Jesus is not just going to perish for the nation, but not just for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who were scattered abroad. So from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. Jesus died so that we would believe, and by doing so have life in his name. Jesus died so that we would not perish, but have life now that's abundant and life that's everlasting. Jesus died so that he would fulfill prophecy, showing that this was not some accident, something against his will, but this was God's plan from eternity for you. And what is the result of that plan? It's so that you would be his child. You would be right there with him where you were always meant to be, that you would be joined to him rather than people scattered all throughout this world, lost into it. Instead, joined to Jesus, brought near to him, receiving the life that's only found in him. And it tells us that from this moment, from John chapter 11, they put plans in place to put Jesus to death. From this gathering of these chief priests, they put plans in place that will ultimately lead to the cross. And yet it's all worth it for Jesus. It's all worth it, knowing what this will do, because he knows that he will accomplish what we could not, what we so desperately need. He does this for us. And it's good and right to think about the reasons why Jesus died. It's good and right to think of what he accomplishes on our behalf. I mean, if we're just to list out what is it that Jesus does on the cross, why is it that Jesus goes to this death? If we were to list all the reasons, I'm sure many of them would be times that we're looking inward on ourselves. We think about what Jesus accomplished for me on this day. And that's good. We should see the God who made us individually is that same God who died for us as individuals. But he doesn't just go to the cross for you. We said that so much of this is coming from this theme verse of the Gospel of John about belief, that this is done so that you would believe in Jesus and have life in his name. But that's not the only focus that Jesus has in going to the cross. There's been another word that's been showing up, especially over these last few weeks, as Jesus is knowing that the cross is coming, as he's preparing his disciples for that. He keeps talking about one word in particular, one word coming up as it's associated with the cross. And it's this word, glory. Glory is the value, the worth, the radiance, the visible expression of something significance and purpose and value. And what we see at the cross is when the glory of God is most obviously put on display. Jesus goes to the cross because it brings him glory. So we would say then that Jesus goes to the cross for himself. Look back at John 17. This was our passage last week and a part that I just wasn't able to get to. John 17 begins this way. It says, when Jesus had spoken these words, he lifted his eyes up to heaven and said, Father, the hour has come. The cross has come. Glorify your Son, that he may glorify you. Since you have given him authority over all flesh to give eternal life to all whom you've given him. And this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you've sent. I glorified you on earth, having accomplished the work that you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had with you before the world existed. Jesus goes to the cross for you. Don't lose that. We talked about this last week in John 17. It's a place where you are most clearly mentioned. Jesus prays for you in this chapter. He has you in mind as he's going to the cross. But Jesus goes to the cross because it's in this moment that he is seen as most glorious. The glory of himself is on his mind as he goes to the cross, that there's something that happens there where he is most demonstrated to be the worthy one. This worth that he's had from eternity before, from even before creation, is most visible on the cross. See, we call this Friday good, and it's easy to think about the good that was won for us this day. And that's right to do. But don't miss the ultimate picture of the good that was done on this day. Today is good because it marks the day when people were finally able to see who God truly is. Today is good because it marks the day when the world was able to see the radiance, the worth of Jesus put on display. Today is good because 2,000 years ago, Jesus was fully seen as God. The author of Hebrews says something very similar. This is Hebrews 2:9. It says, but we see him for a little while was made lower than the angels, namely Jesus. So it's talking about Jesus, crowned with glory and honor. Why? Why does he have this glory? Because of the suffering of death. So that by the grace of God, he might taste death for everyone. See, I would take this as a great loss if our takeaway was Good Friday was good because of what I got. Now, I'm not diminishing that. These ideas that I'm bringing up are not mutually exclusive. And instead, Good Friday is the day when Jesus was enthroned. Good Friday is the day where the radiance, the perfection, the whole plan of God was put forth. Good Friday was the day that we could look at Jesus and say, you truly are worthy. Yes, Jesus dies so that we would believe in him, but he does so to demonstrate that he is the one worthy of belief. Yes, Jesus dies so that we do not perish but have life everlasting in his name, but he does so to demonstrate that he is the one who controls all of life and death. Yes, Jesus dies to fulfill prophecy, but he does so to demonstrate that he is the one who holds and wields all truth, all plans, all that happens. Jesus dies to make you a child, but he does so to demonstrate that he is that good God that we so desperately need. And so he comes, and he joins us to him. The cross is the picture of the glory of God, glory of Jesus, the ability, the success, the might of Jesus on display. That is what makes today good. His glory, his honor that came from his suffering. Now, please don't err on one side and miss the other. This day is about Jesus. It's entirely about him. The day that we stop and remember his glory on display. But don't forget why he went. It's not just his glory that's on his mind. It's you. See, we say today is good because Jesus was enthroned on a cross. Jesus said today is good because he spent it for you.